The next bill on our agenda is Stevenson Bill, House File 1289. And I move House File 1289 be referred to the Health, Finance, and Policy Committee. Representative Stevenson, it looks like there are no amendments to your bill. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so we will, if you want to just give us some opening comments regarding your bill, and we'll move to your testifiers.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. About 6 months ago, the U.S. Surgeon General called for social media platforms to bear warning labels similar to those that are on packs of cigarettes and alcohol and other products. Today, I'm bringing to the committee a bill that implements that recommendation. The bill also contains a section requiring social media to have pop-up notifications every 30 minutes, informing the user how much total time has been spent on the platform. Members, the evidence is clear. Social media has a significant negative impact on mental health, particularly for kids. 95% of children ages 13 to 17 report using a social media platform, with more than a third saying that they use social media almost constantly. Gallup found that the average teenager spends 4.8 hours every day interacting with various social media platforms. 4.8 hours. This is not an accident. It's not happenstance. This is how social media companies make money. They optimize their platforms to keep people looking at them as long as possible. Several studies have documented the direct link between excessive social media consumption and poor mental health outcomes, including loneliness, depression, anxiety, sleep disruption, memory loss, eating disorders, self-harm, and even suicidal ideation. Members, we're failing kids and we're failing parents because we're not adopting the public policy solutions we need to control this problem. We're going to look back at this time and social media companies the same way today we look back at big tobacco in the 50s and 60s. We think, why on earth did they allow people to smoke cigarettes in airplanes? How could they have done that? 50 years from now, they're going to look back and go, why were they letting teenagers spend 5 hours a day on TikTok? That's insane. We need to do something about this problem. Warning labels are not the end-all be-all. It's not a complete solution. But you know, this is not a case where there is a silver bullet. We're going to need silver buckshot. We're going to need a lot of different, smaller solutions. Warning labels have been effective in other public health areas, including tobacco. And it seems like a common sense solution going forward to educate the public about the dangers of excessive social media use. Thank you, Madam Chair. I do think there are testifiers.
And if we could have our testifiers ready, we have one that is on Zoom and one that is here. First is Eric. I might be saying your last name incorrectly. Is it Mishi? Please identify yourself for the record and begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Committee, my name is Eric Mishi. I'm the CEO of SAVE, Suicide Awareness Voices of Education, a 36-year-old Minnesota-based national nonprofit committed to suicide prevention. I'm also here as a member of the Kids Keep It Digitally Safe campaign contest, a global alliance fighting for social media warning labels. We stand in unwavering support of this legislation because the dangers of social media are real, immediate, and deadly. And we need to look no further than the recent incident with the Minnesota State Senator. According to FBI documents detailing his arrest, Minnesota law enforcement placed advertisements for commercial sex on at least 2 websites known for facilitating human trafficking. These websites are publicly available on the internet and are part of the same digital ecosystem where predators lurk, waiting to exploit vulnerable individuals and children. Whether the social media platform is Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, a website, or TikTok, or some other product that's been created by big tech, activity is occurring on these platforms every single day that is threatening children. And social media has become a maelstrom for kids, pulling them into anxiety, depression, and death. Where there is smoke, there is fire, and big tech is fanning the flames. For too long, social media companies have insisted they're protecting kids, but their track record is littered with tragedy. And this is no time to trust but verify. It's time to regulate and enforce. We don't rely on cigarette companies to police themselves. We don't trust alcohol companies to decide when kids should drink. We don't let the arsonist put out the fire. So why are we letting social media platforms set the rules for protecting our children? These platforms are not passive. As Representative Stevens pointed out, they are engineered for addiction, and algorithms manipulate kids, distorting their reality and keeping them glued to the screen. And if that isn't bad enough, they are a legally sanctioned house of horrors for young people in Minnesota, the United States, and across the world. A house of horrors that is filled with sex trafficking, sextortion, legal drugs, suicidal ideation, suicide, and other predatory behavior. The need for warning labels is not the end-all be-all, but they are a start for an all-in solution. Parents have to be part of the solution, but parents need to be made aware of these harms, and that's the purpose behind a warning label. There is more that must be done, and big tech will do all they can, as they have and continue to tell you, these bills are unconstitutional. The most frequent argument they're going to make is that it's a First Amendment violation. But let's be honest, does anybody in this room believe that that state senator or the websites that let him hunt for a child should be able to hide behind a free speech argument? Yet big tech opponents of this bill and every other effort to put common sense guardrails on social media argue that First Amendment protects big tech and their predators, and that lawmakers should reject any all efforts to regulate these platforms. Members of the committee, here is my First Amendment response to that argument. Baloney. The time for trusting big tech is over. The time to regulate and enforce is now. Every click has its cost, and it's time to regulate by putting labels on warning on social media. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next testifier is Tabitha Urbanski, and our last will be Zach Lilly, who is on Zoom. Tabitha, if you can make your way up. Please identify yourself for the record and begin.
My name is Tabitha Urbanski. First of all, I'd like to say good morning and thank you to this committee and Representative Stevenson, as well as the other authors of this bill. I said my name, Tabitha Urbanski, and I lost my 17-year-old son. This is my son. I lost my 17-year-old son, Seth, on October 26, 2022, to fentanyl poisoning. Seth had been out of rehab for 3 weeks, and he was doing really well. He was planning for his future and actively participating in a program to learn construction skills and obtain his high school diploma. He had been making plans for his upcoming birthday celebration, and he was excited about the future and the possibilities that lay ahead. The day before Seth died, he left his program early to buy Percocet after a dealer connected with him on Snapchat. He unknowingly received fentanyl instead. After going home, he went up to his room to lay down like any other teenager. I texted several times about dinner, his day, and good night, assuming he was sleeping and needed some space. He was home. I felt like he was safe. And we didn't know that he was struggling with his addiction that day. But I didn't hear back from him, not because he was sleeping, but because he was already gone. I would not find this out until the following morning when I went to wake him up for his program. At 7:38 a.m. the following morning, I found my beautiful son sitting at the end of his bed, dead. Small blue pieces of pills were still visible on his lips, but he was gone. There was no Narcan, no CPR, no medical interventions that could bring him back to me. He was gone. I have to live with that picture of my baby boy in my mind for the rest of my life. This is what I have left of my son. Pictures. Pictures is what I have left of him. The concentration of the fentanyl was so strong, it was 3 times the lethal dose. He never had a chance. He has left behind 8 siblings, 3 parents, 4 sets of grandparents, and numerous other family. We went from planning his 18th birthday to planning a funeral all in the same week. My son battled his addiction for over 3 years, and most of his purchases were done via Snapchat. Seth once told me that phones were basically obsolete. Dealers were too paranoid. He said they used Snapchat to sell because they didn't have to worry about being caught. Social media not only fueled his depression and anxiety, but also played a critical role in his death. This bill is not the fix-all that's needed. It definitely is not, but it is a step in the right direction. So I'm here before you today to ask you all to move HL1289 forward. It is time that we hold social media accountable for the damage their platforms are causing to our most vulnerable, our children. I stand here for my family, my son, and all the other families in Minnesota and across the country that I've met, and those that I have not, that should be planning futures and not funerals. Children should learn from their mistakes and not die from them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Urbanski, for your testimony, and I'm so sorry for your loss. We appreciate you sharing your story today. Our last testifier that signed up ahead of time is Zach Lilly with NetChoice. If you are available, if you could identify yourself and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Zach Lilly with NetChoice. We're a trade association of leading tech companies dedicated to protecting free enterprise and free expression online. We have concerns with HF 1289 as it violates the First Amendment of the Constitution and would not be effective at improving the online experience for young people. People like to make comparisons between social media and other regulated goods and services, but these comparisons usually fall short. The reality is that social media platforms are speech platforms, and any attempt to regulate them needs to seriously contend with the First Amendment. HF 1289 violates the First Amendment in at least two ways. For one, the warning label would require the conveyance of a controversial message. There is no scientific consensus regarding the mental health effects of social media. Much more scientific study is needed. The courts have ruled labeling requirements must adhere to verifiable criteria, like calorie count. The type of warning label that HF 1289 would mandate is not fact, but rather a political opinion. The second issue is that speech is fundamentally different from calories or other product labeling requirements. Americans have a constitutionally protected right to express themselves and to engage in the expression of others. Would it be appropriate for the government to force a news station, newspaper, or blog of an independent journalist to publish a warning label about their writing? Is it the government's right to dissuade citizens from engaging with First Amendment protected speech? No. Instead, the government can focus resources on educating young people and parents directly instead of commandeering private platforms over how to keep themselves safe online. This could be done by teaching kids digital literacy while connecting parents and guardians with family control and monitoring tools that are already offered in the private sector. None of these concepts violate the First Amendment and would actually empower Minnesotans to stay safer online. Again, we respectfully ask that you not advance HF 1289. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lilly. Are there any members of the public who wish to testify on this bill? Seeing none, we will move to member questions. Members, any questions for our bill author? Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to also express my sympathies to the testifier and her family. One of the things that I attempted to do in our co-chairing environment was to do educational programs for the committee, and we did a number of them. And one of the things that we were looking to try to accomplish but did not get done this session was to bring in folks who can talk about and inform the committee and educate the committee on algorithms. How do they work? How does data collection work? How do these systems ultimately roll up and go after certain persons in our society and in our culture and in our communities, to be able to get a better understanding of how to work with the issue that's not only this issue that's before us today, but the other bills that are similar in nature to this. This concept has bipartisan support. And I just wanted to make sure that we let folks know that that was one of the goals of this committee this year, was to learn more about that. And we may have some time after deadline to do that. We certainly may have some time next year as we continue this effort. But it is very important, and both members on the GOP side and the DFL side have appreciated those educational meetings and have told me that. And this is another one that's an extremely important one for us to have as lawmakers. So, Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Driscoll. Up next is Representative Kreshaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the bill authors. So first of all, I'll just say I support this. I think that this is catching us up, and as we move to the digital platform, just like we've done with paper, print, and warning labels, is the right idea. A couple of things that I just want to offer as I would continue to give my support to the testifier who said the things they said about whatever they said. I'm just going to go this way. With the algorithms, the AI, and the programming, these tech companies can do this stuff very, very quickly. They have the means to do this. We know their algorithms. I write them. We see them. And so, I see this as no different than being ADA compliant. Making sure that we're going along the lines there with people with disabilities and preventing. There is no scientific evidence that's not true. There is plenty of evidence. Go to the schools, you'll see it. So thank you for that. The one thing I do want to bring up, you don't necessarily have to give me an answer on this, but one of the things that I think we should address or you should look at is, and I don't know how we get to this, but the idea of the scamming or the false warning labels that you might see. I mean, we see this with the virus stuff all the time. I don't know how we get there, but the penalties should be such that if you are imitating a company with a false label like this and you take someone down and we had an earlier bill about scamming and consumer protections, we should consider that. But by and large, thank you, Representative Stevenson. This will be a tough one to get ahead of, but we need to.
Thank you. And next is Representative Reimer.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative, for bringing this bill to the committee today. Obviously, I understand the heart behind the bill. Right now my family is going through a screen fast, and it's been really healthy for us and our kids to just stop watching Bluey all the time. My concern, I guess, is right now, like when you talk about social media advertisers, these are oftentimes small businesses who maybe can't afford a TV ad or can't afford a print ad, but can't afford the $3 or $4 a day you put towards social media. And if you go social media platform by social media platform, there's already severe restrictions, actual outright prohibition on things like guns, tobacco, THC, and cannabis. If you're looking to advertise on social media platforms, I think they're figuring it out as our state is figuring it out. Pornographic content, and even if you go to Facebook or Instagram, you can't advertise scales because it promotes the ideal body image. And then there's also severe restrictions on financial products, housing, politics, credit offerings, and numerous other things. There's a lot of tools that are already available on social media platforms, like if you have an underage child, to limit the time that they use the social media platform in general. I didn't notice in your bill a specific call out of the age. It seems to impose this on all users. And my question for you is, if I'm a 34-year-old guy and I have total kind of free choice of my life, what in this bill kind of alleviates that on someone like me who's a consenting adult who fully knows what they're getting into?
Representative Stevenson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Reimer. First, I will just want to admit that I also feel inadequate compared to Bandit as a father. So I think maybe a fast on Bluey is a good idea. And I also did want to comment. It occurred to me as I was listening to you talk about the policies that these platforms have put in about their advertising, that is, in a way, an admission that these platforms have the impacts that we are saying that they do, right? Why else would they prohibit putting advertisements for scales if they didn't believe that there was a connection between what people see on Facebook and what they do in real life? If they didn't see a connection between excessive social media use and eating disorders, they would reject the idea that they should limit advertisements for scales. But to your question, this bill does require warning labels for all ages, because while the evidence that I have seen has said that the effects are more strong on children, the mental health impacts. They do exist for adults as well, and adults should know. But for a 34-year-old or a 40-year-old or anyone else who's of age, the bill does not restrict any access to these platforms. It just provides a little bit of information. And frankly, you know, I get a little pop-up on my phone once a week that tells me how much time I've spent on my screen, and so once a week I feel embarrassed at how much time I spend on my phone this week, you know, and I do try and mitigate that, but it doesn't stop me. Like, I can still use my phone. It doesn't interfere with my right to use my phone as much as I want to get that pop-up saying, you know, I'm not even going to tell you how many hours a day I spend on my phone because it's ridiculous. But I still have that ability as an adult to make that choice.
Members, we only have 5 minutes left. If you have, Representative Reimer, do you have follow-up that's quick, or do you?
No, I'm good. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Representative West.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I do have a question, but to address one of the comments that it is not like cigarettes, it is, well, maybe not a perfect analogy, but they're both harmful addictions. And cigarettes have warning labels. Even my can of Monster here says not recommended for children, people sensitive to caffeine, pregnant women, or women who are nursing. So we have warning labels on a lot of things. And looking at that from a First Amendment perspective, that is my question for you. What is your response, maybe a little more thorough than the other testifier, and you're an attorney, the First Amendment question, and just so I don't need a follow-up, I'm going to continue. So that's the one question, and the other comment I would have is 30 minutes for a pop-up sounds infuriating. Like, I do have great concerns over that. I support the bill, well, at least moving the bill forward for sure, because this is an issue that we need to raise, and there's like phones in schools is another related issue. But having a child, especially a girl, a young girl with social media in their pocket every single day is like giving every 13-year-old boy a gun. And that's something Jonathan Haidt talked about with the way the two genders associate differently with one another, with the relational damage and the physical aggression that you generally see in the respective genders. So this is an important issue, and we're seeing it in our kids, and as a father of two daughters, I care about it a lot, but I would like a more thorough answer to the First Amendment concerns that were brought up earlier. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Stevenson.
First of all, Representative West, phones in schools, 100% agree. In intros today is a bill that I'm carrying. Representative Nadeau is on as well to ban phones in schools. You might want to take a look at that. We can work on the pop-ups. It's a novel concept here, so happy to continue working on that and appreciate your comment there. On the First Amendment, you know, I reject the idea that this is a violation of the First Amendment. I think it's just a boilerplate response to any attempt we have to regulate social media. Members who have been on this committee before, we've had bills before to do social media stuff. Literally anything we do, they come in and say this violates the First Amendment. It's not true. Even if you ignore the fact that there's lots of products out there that have a requirement of warning labels, which defeats this mandated speech or the controversial speech argument that he made. Even if you think the First Amendment is implicated, understand that the government can regulate speech if it has a compelling state interest, and what could be more compelling than protecting our kids? So I don't believe that this is a violation of the First Amendment. There are a lot of bills that have passed, including a bill that we passed last year on data privacy that impacts social media companies. Lots of states have passed that. It doesn't violate the First Amendment.
Thank you, Representative Stevenson. And Representative Cha is our last member question.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Representative Stevenson, for this bill. I have a background in computer science, so let me educate a little bit on this subject. With the Google quantum computer, it takes 6 seconds to compute what a computer would do in 47 years. This is the type of technology that these algorithms and companies are using to target our children and violating our privacy, okay? These quantum computers are continuously, every second of every day, finding ways to get into our children's digital device, into our consumer's head, and they continue to do it, and they've been doing it for over 30 years, since the inception of the internet in 1993. I think it is time, as a legislator in the state of Minnesota, that we take action to protect our children and our constituents. Thank you, Representative Steve.
Thank you, Representative Cha. And Representative Steve, I'm just going to make one quick comment before I let you wrap up, that I just wanted to point out that our testifier on Zoom stated that these social media platforms are platforms of free speech, and these are speech platforms, but I would respectfully disagree in the fact that these mediums are also conducting business and they are a commerce tool. And so to be able to split that out and to split hairs and to say that it is one thing when it actually is multiple things, I would hate for us to start regulating them like commerce if they are unwilling to or unable to recognize that they are used for more than just a platform of free speech. And so I would maybe want to talk to you offline as to, as if mediums that are being used as commerce as well, how do we then look at how we regulate those pieces? And so I appreciate you bringing this bill forward. Representative Stevenson, if you have any wrap-ups to your bill.
Yeah, I'll be very brief, Madam Chair. I did want to recognize what Representative O'Driscoll said, and appreciated, we had conversations about that educational goal, and I think that was a great idea, and I understand that it just didn't come together because of people's availability, but I appreciate the effort to do that, and I'm glad that we're talking about doing it before. Minnesota really has been a leader in regulating social media and technology. We've passed a number of bipartisan pieces of legislation for new members in the room, including comprehensive data privacy that I mentioned earlier, a leading ban on deep fakes. I think we were the first state in the country to regulate child social media influencers, which we did last year, prohibiting them under an age of 13. And I think I'm forgetting a few other, the transparency piece that we passed last year, which was also a first. So I appreciate the bipartisan support for this bill and committed to keep working on it with anybody who's interested.
Thank you, Representative Stevenson. And before I go to the vote, I did just want to say, because I see people wrapping up, and I don't want everybody to leave before I say this, is I want to first apologize to the testifiers that came today to testify on Representative Steve Elkins' bill. We had that on the slate to have that bill heard today, but we did not get to that. And so we hope that we'll be able to accommodate you in the future when we bring the bill back to committee. And so my deepest apologies that you sat through a committee hearing, did not get to testify. With that, I renew the motion that House File 1289 be referred to the Health, Finance, and Policy Committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
No.
The motion prevails, and House File 1289 is referred to the Health, Finance, and Policy Committee.